welcome back to the Whoa, damn! Welcome back to the PaperTrails podcast with your boys Mohammed and Shamaki. And today it's the season finale.
El finalo. Yep.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
Oh,
Hey.
to hold back tears today, man. Driving here, man. I was driving with the. I was driving with my veins. But yeah, season finale.
This is it. Come to the end.
We're calling this season 4 of the Paper Trails podcast a day, calling it a wrap.
Yeah.
Had some great guests on in recent weeks even. Had some great discussions throughout the whole podcast. I think we've touched on a lot of different topics this season. I would say there was a lot of variety this season, you know. And yeah.
Productivity, a lot of gems.
A lot of productivity in the beginning, I would say.
Yeah.
In the middle, we were doing a bit more about storytelling.
Yeah. It had different phases. You know, it's crazy. It doesn't feel like we're rapping because our first episode is January, like January something or February. It was basically the start of the year.
Yeah.
And now our end of season is
coming towards the end of the year.
The end of the year, you know what I mean? That's why I had to bring on this blue one, my seasonal blue jumper to let me know which year I'm in, which part of the year I'm in, you know?
What do you mean? Why blue in November?
No, because the last time when I was closing off the season, I was wearing this blue thing. So
okay.
Continuity.
So this is
do you know what I mean? Basically what I'm saying is when you start seeing this blue one come out, it means we're wrapping up the season, you know, and that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how's it been for you? Overall, let's talk overall.
Yeah, you know what was interesting?
Yeah.
Starting off like fireworks. You know what I mean? Because we came off, I would say, a good end to the season. We had a live episode. We had all that stuff, you know, kicking off.
Let's not forget, January the 1st was a Monday.
January 1st was a Monday. I don't know how much you like that. Hey,
that is like
clean slate.
That's hot chocolate on a cold winter night to me, you know.
Yeah, I remember you saying it. It's like, yo, this is it. Like this is, you know. And
be the same.
Started off, like I said, fireworks. Then towards, I'd say maybe the summery kind of period, you know, burnout started creeping in a little bit. And then that's what I've learned, kids. You know, sometimes you just gotta take a break. You know what I mean? And it's not a bad thing. It's. I feel like sometimes if you don't take a break when you really need to take a break, that's when you end up doing silly mistakes and just rushing things and putting out stuff that you might not be happy with. But like once you take that break, then you start getting that itch to be like, nah, let me come back. But let me come back with new ideas, and you've got the energy for it, and you're not fatigued by all of this kind of stuff, you know, because it is far also to get to Richmond. You know, it's not so easy place to come to. This fantastic podcast room, you know. So it's getting by all of that stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like I had serious ebbs and flows throughout it. Then towards the end of the year, then there was the play that I was a part of and stuff like that, which definitely sparked the creativity and all of that stuff. So I would say my year has just been like that, and now it's back on the high, I would say. How about yourself?
That's the funny thing, like we're talking about the seasonal review, but because it started on January the 1st, it feels like we're reviewing the year.
Yeah, that's literally what it is.
Yeah, for myself, I would say it's been an interesting one, man. It's been a very interesting one. Because you know what, like I left my job in September, and I was in that job for a year, right? Just a year and a bit, and already in the beginning of like when I took that job in the first place, I was a bit like, it's true, it's really what I want.
Yeah,
you know. Even last year, I was in a bit of, like I was in a position where I was kind of at a crossroads, stay on the career I was in, or try something else, and things happened which meant that I didn't have a lot of support financially to be able to just leave that career and start a new one, right? And yeah, that ended up being the case where I did continue doing that job, but I didn't enjoy it one bit. You know, I didn't enjoy it one bit. I wouldn't say I despised it. It was more
from
the
what
routine.
You were telling me, you were. From what you were telling me.
Yeah, maybe I'm lying to myself. It's because I've had a bit of time away, you know? I was in the heat of the moment.
You know what? They weren't that bad.
I was in the heat of the moment. But this is after coming off 9 years of working in the 9 to 5 routine, right? But technically, I was working in a shift pattern, so it wasn't really a routine. That's the biggest thing I struggle with. So I realized I'm deeply, deeply, deeply inclined towards a routine.
Routine orientated, yeah.
Very much so. And if I don't have it, I don't think I'm someone who can handle chaos too well, like too much chaos for so long.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can really. But then again, I've seen with my own eyes that some people can, like within my field, right? And then you think about all the emergency services and stuff. They're operating on that level professionally on a life or death basis, right?
Yeah, every day.
So yeah, but me personally, nah. That's why I ended up leaving. And yeah, I would say probably towards the end of because I handed in my notice in June.
Yeah,
longest notice period I've ever served. 3 months. 3 months.
Trapped there.
Yeah, unheard of.
Contract.
Unheard of, right?
Yeah.
You know, in Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day, yeah, the trap cards. That's how it felt. You know.
I mean, I don't know, but it sounds like
these guys are nerdy enough.
I mean, I wasn't a bloody. I played football.
I played football too.
I was a normal kid.
You know, I was cosplaying as normal kids. But yeah, so yeah, I think we started the year, and I was like, first of all, I think you said you would take on the brunt of things. You did say that to me, so and I definitely took you for your word, and I leaned on that. You know, I took it and ran. But yeah, I think also because I didn't physically have the energy to actually contribute more, other than turning up when I could, you know.
Yeah, which is calm.
Yeah, which is calm, but obviously for my own personal not reason, for my own personal gain, and what I wanted I wanted the podcast to go, and how what we wanna achieve. That's another thing. I'm big on goals and stuff. Now these kind of things I'm kind of dissociating myself from. I wouldn't say it was a disappointment. I just feel we didn't manage it well because of burnout, things like that, and my job as well that I wasn't enjoying. And I really started feeling disenchanted with my job around the June-ish time when I handed in my notice, right? And then I feel like at that point we were both burnt out. And then we didn't. I don't think we. I was checking our stats. I was checking our data. We didn't drop an episode from July to November.
That's crazy.
End of July to November.
Yeah,
which is a long time.
Is that the longest we haven't?
That's the longest. Well,
probably.
Last season we were a lot more consistent.
Yeah.
So yeah, this season there's a lack of consistency, but I think there's a lot of personal issues we were dealing with, but I also feel that this is the negative side of things that I'm talking about. But I also feel we created a lot of episodes that gave us a very balanced view on things. You know, like all like the self-help books and productivity stuff we consumed this season, and even the guests and even the other stuff we talked about, like the fantasy episode, like the history of fantasy episode. These gave us a really good foundation to build on for the next season. Now I feel like we can approach the next season with like a laser focus and a real idea of how we want to go, where we want to go, who we want to bring with us. You know, so I like to think for me is a large positive that we actually have a body of work. We've been talking recently, and Shamarki's been abusing the words social capital.
I thought you were going to say the other word.
Which one is it?
Come
on, say it.
The one you coined. Hey, circle sign, but that's
that's it. Neither here nor there.
But one thing I wanted to say as well, that for all the other creatives out there, basically, you know, I think maybe it comes from a lot of watching How I Met Your Mother, which is quite a show that just talks back on, you know, people in their 20s and all that kind of stuff, you know, which is what I really like. And I guess it's a year of like really in those years, like just finding yourself, finding what you want to do, the passions that you like, what works for you, what doesn't. And we get crippled by just having to also know what we want to do, because that's what everyone expects you to know. But it's understanding that with this, for example, this is our passions lies in creativity. And so we are actively going after it. And at the moment, there isn't really much money. There isn't anything going on, really. It's just passion.
A lot of money being spent.
There's a lot of money being spent, but it's just passion. And this is how like things start off. And the stuff of like burnouts and the negative, I guess, aspects that kind of come with it is what comes part and parcel. That's what I've been learning the more I kind of do this, which is kind of like we're always expecting something, but that thing takes a while for it to come. And funny enough, I got this from Simon Cowell, where he was basically, when he was getting into the whole music thing as a kid, one guy told him, like, are you willing to do this for the next 20 years without anything happening? And he was like, yeah, because I just enjoy it. And then obviously he did make it in like 20 years. But that's kind of what it is. That's something that I've had to kind of realize, which is just like, the creative pursuit is hard. You know, it's tough. It's tricky. It comes with a lot of doubt. It comes with a lot of self-criticism. And it just comes with, like, you know, you spend a lot of time, effort. You give birth to something that you've, you know, cooked in the oven for a while. And then suddenly...
I don't think you know what it takes to give birth, bro.
I'm sure it's like that. You know what I mean? You've cooked it in the oven for a minute. Now you've given it out to the people. And people are like, yeah. And, you know, you got to sit with that. You know, you got to sit with that. And you're like, okay, so is my best work Or, and then if you do feel like that, that might lead you to then this process of burning out. You might be like, I don't want to continue doing this. But then you got to understand that is how it's going to be. Nobody's polished from the start. Nobody's perfect from the start, you know? And it's just about basically putting in the reps, continuing on like that, and just being authentic to yourself, you know? I think that's one thing I will tell Mo. I was telling him a lot. He had the podcast I would do. He was very authentic in that podcast. And it was... it was
there's another podcast I did.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, that he was very, very authentic. And I feel like that's how you also have to kind of be as a creative. Like, you know, this is what I feel good about telling you guys, that it is a struggle. You know, it isn't all sunshine and daisies, you know. This is the end of year event.
If you hear the way he was talking about that podcast, my word.
Yeah, and in that podcast, they are very authentic.
Yeah, wow.
They are too candid about, like, yo, we're not doing well right now. And, like, sometimes that's what you need as other creatives, because if all you're hearing is just like, oh, yeah, we are doing well. We're doing fantastic right now. This is the best numbers we've ever got. Oh, my days, the next week is, these are even better numbers. And the week after that, it's like, oh, we can't be stopped. And then it's just like, where does the relatability lie, you know? And I think that's where it is. There's creatives out there in their bedrooms just editing 8 hours for then like 2 views. And then it's like, oh, maybe this isn't it. But then you're going to stumble across that thing that happens, and then that thing will blow up. And then next thing you know, you've got a catalog that you're building up, which is what Mo was talking about, and building up that social capital. Which basically... sometimes what you gotta understand is you gotta have a lot of stuff out there. You gotta have a catalog, a full catalog, right? So then when you get that video that does blow up, people can go back and be like, oh wow, so these guys have been at for a while, and they've got a lot of stuff that they can constantly watch. But the last thing you want is one big hit single and then nothing else after that. Or like it's so big that everything that comes after that is like, oh, like it's not as good as this. And maybe he's just a one-hit wonder, you know what I mean? So it's finding that nice balance, which is what I've definitely realized this year for sure, you know, in doing this. You know? If you're trying to follow the creative pursuits, you gotta... We had a guest on recently, just now, and she was like, you gotta love what you're doing. You know, it's gotta be passion. Otherwise, if you do it for money, you won't see it for a minute. And are you okay with that? You know, those are the things you have to ask yourself. Are you okay with not seeing money for a few years? And if you're okay with that, then continue on doing it. If you're not, then you're not gonna be able to push this along any further.
Or you won't seem authentic. You're not, and people can read authenticity from out of it.
Yeah, and that's what people like. People tend to like personal things and personal brands rather than just an entity. You know, that they can't really relate to. You know?
Cool. So talk about our thoughts on the podcast in general. In terms of, obviously, what is PaperTrails? Who is PaperTrails? And I was even thinking about that. I was listening to something the other day, and they were talking about branding and stuff, and I was thinking about how we used to be Inspyre Reads, if you didn't know. So we ran as Inspyre Reads for quite some time, actually, quite consistently. And then I started thinking, isn't it interesting that we're talking about... I feel like we've evolved to the point where now we're focusing more on the art of storytelling more than anything else. And how that can be used in every different industry and every sector, and and as creatives, how we can use that to push our own creative minds and tell our own stories. So PaperTrails, I think it's actually very apt now that like it was almost a tongue-in-cheek comment when I first suggested that name. But I feel like it's actually
like shoes you can fill into.
Yeah, we've grown into it, I would say, and it makes a lot of sense now. And especially with the plans for the upcoming season, which we'll talk about shortly. I think it will make a lot of sense. But yeah, in terms of ourselves as creatives and our growth, I would like to ask you, how has it been for you in the last year, or as we've run through the season?
You know what? To even touch on it, I would say looking back further. So I sometimes listen to like our old podcasts and stuff like that, and I didn't know it, but like sometimes, like obviously when I was doing those, I didn't feel it, but I knew I was very anxious doing it. And it was only until, funny enough, Zayn Malik, he was doing a Hot Ones episode, right? And the way he was talking was like something that sounded very familiar. Then I realized it was how I kind of used to talk, which is like this weird, like cold kind of like, where you're trying to say your pieces, but you're like shivering in a weird way.
Yeah, you're a difficult person to co-host.
No, yeah, but I was just like, it felt very, like I could tell listening back to that, like sometimes I do it to just be like, damn, like, look how anxious I was to just speak, or like kind of get my ideas across, my points across, and all this kind of other stuff. And I feel like the one takeaway, especially this year, I feel like I've been a lot more comfortable with just my ideas and my own thoughts. Because before I used to be like, well, if this thought isn't good or backed by something or backed by science or whatever it is, or like backed by the actual author of the book or something, it has had some sort of substance to make that point, then it's not a good point. But that's not really what podcasts kind of are. Podcast is like a conversation between two people and their thoughts on a certain subject. And that's definitely been something that I've started to grow more into, especially when we're doing non-fiction books, which I felt like, okay, this is a bit science-backed. So your points have to be a bit more substantial. But then kind of as we were doing it and the more comfortable we were kind of getting, and people liking the ones where we're talking about our own mental health and our own struggles and all of that, and people really gravitating to those more than the so-called points I had to make. I was like, you know what, there's no point in trying to overdo yourself or like make, you know, something, every statement backed by something. You know, sometimes you just speak, you know, you shoot from the hip, you know, speak from the heart, be more authentic, you know. That's definitely been something I've been learning, to try and be a lot more on this in the podcast settings, because naturally I tend to build up barriers for myself in what I like to express and what I like to say. You know what I mean? I remember you always calling me some sort of enigma.
What? To this day, what do you mean?
Yeah, that is true. And I feel like it's just to try and break those barriers in some respect, not all barriers, but some respect in terms of the struggles of creativity and like trying to make it. So that's definitely something I've taken back. It's just learning, seeing the growth of how I speak now, and also trying to be a lot more authentic.
I mean, I've seen the growth. First of all, I still, if any of you guys watch The Boys, I literally renamed them my phone book to Black Noir, because I was like, that's how you approached doing a podcast. But
no, anyway. Honestly, you know what? Yeah, I do feel so sorry for you for the earlier days.
The earlier days were tough, bro.
I was listening back to it, and half of it was like, yeah, now you're right. Yeah, it just, and he's like, brother, speak. I know you read the book. I mean, why?
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, this guy read the book.
And then it gets to a point.
Does he know we're here right now?
Yeah, no. And then also, like, as well, you know, what's interesting is even the laughter.
Yeah. It's
like he's got a very outward, protruding laugh. You know what I mean? But I've got an inward laugh. So especially like when there's no cameras, it's just
the audio listeners must think it's just one guy laughing the whole episode.
Sometimes it comes across like he'll say like, yeah, but that's what she said, and then just silence. So you're just laughing at every joke he makes.
Listen, man, when I'm editing it, I go find Shamanki's audio clips and amplify it. Just so I know, man, I ain't going crazy.
It's just so half of it was just him going, and I'm just silent.
You know what it is? I'm trying to recreate the moments where everybody laughs and runs away from each other at all times. But I was talking about your growth.
Yeah.
And touching on your previous way of actually doing the podcast. I was very impressed when you did the Duxie Days interview on stage. I was like, this is a side of you I've never seen, honestly. Because I was like, damn, this guy's not like this on our podcast.
Yeah, that was
you seem like a cool character over there, you know. Like you put yourself across very well.
Yeah.
And I would say since then, I feel like that was the turning point. I feel like you came back here and you like you've grown into your role as a co-host, and you've done a lot more interviews by yourself as well. Maybe like last season especially, I feel like you've done a lot by yourself.
Yeah. And there was a lot of just listening back and be like, oh, this could be better, that could be bad.
And I would say like, you know, like in the early days, because we touched on it obviously off screen the other day, where you were like, damn, bro, let me land them with some points, yeah.
Oh
yeah. Because I would say that came from a habit of, because I feel like, oh, nobody's gonna fill the gap of silence.
Yeah. You were making up a lot.
I'll talk a lot more, I would say. And to this day, I feel like I struggle with that.
Yeah, especially remember when we had the Yasin, so we had an extra co-host, which, you know,
he was worse than you.
Help him out. But it was just two silent guys.
He was worse than you. I was like talking to a whole guy, damn. Nah, because I'll be like, come on, man.
Don't kill me, man.
Yeah, but I feel like that's why I built some bad habits out of it. But now I'm trying to balance myself as well as a host. But yeah, talking about the stage, and then you did your play. That's another side of you. I was like, man, this guy is multifaceted all of a sudden. The growth. Yeah. What's going on? What's going on in his life? But I thought that was very interesting as well. That's why I wanted to ask you about your creative pursuits and where you see yourself going forward, like and where you see yourself now. Even what's your idea of yourself? I feel like I have a clear idea that I'm always constantly spying. I don't want to say it anymore.
No, what is it?
Yeah, like I'm trying to do this freelance thing. Blah, blah,
yeah.
Everybody knows. Even my name on socials, like your name is a bit more like, ooh, shots.
Yeah, putting in every cover. Oh, my name's Moinisa Freelance, and I live over here.
Literally.
But
I'm trying to scale that back now, boy.
Yeah, I don't think I knew the word freelance before you.
Yeah.
First I thought it was like some sort of like lance with a knife.
There's a few words.
But no, I'd say, I guess, just there's a lot of different kind of stuff that I've seen on YouTube. And there's a certain community of like people out there that tell stories about just anything and everything, because like we were saying, stories are found in any and everything. But more so being like, I guess I kind of pinned it down to like kind of someone-ish, two people actually, I would say. One, a kind of a Jon Stewart / Trevor Noah kind of vibes, in terms of like it's informative, interesting, but also is done with like coated in humor. Because I feel like sometimes to tell the truth, it's better doing it in humor than actually like telling you you're trash. You know what I mean? Because people tend to like listen more. So it's kind of trying to, you know what I mean, try get into those kind of stuff, find topics that are really interesting, making stories out of them in kind of a light, funny, hearted way, so people can eventually be like, this is somebody or channel or whatever that I can go to hear about this kind of
you mean as a content creator?
As a content creator, yeah,
kind of story.
for sure. Yeah. I feel like last year it was interesting on the live episode. I was like saying so many different things, but I was like later on what it formally morphs into. But like I feel like it's a lot easier to just go one bit at a time. So that's the plan next year, is to try and make as much stories of like different things as possible, to just kind of get your voice and your opinion and out there, because there is communities for it. You know, I see on YouTube so many different other video. It doesn't have to even be a video essay. So many different other video, but they are video essay people of like this guy, and they were talking about a variety of different topics, and then we're getting, you know, millions of people, and it's like, oh, so there is an audience for it.
It really does seem like in the last 2 years, maybe like video essays have become like a massive thing.
Yeah, because like sometimes
lot of people
people just
consume it.
like wanna learn about something and know something. It's kind of interesting. It's like the younger you are, you're looking more for entertainment. But like I feel like the older you kind of get, the more you just look for answers in things. And there's a lot of answers in history. There's a lot of answers in books. There's a lot of answers in even just common daily life. You know how humans are and what's going on here and this and that. And that's like so like kind of venturing more into that. Because before I'll just be like, but what do the people want?
Yeah.
What's gonna like
Stick.
bring that person, bring this person, and it's like you're not able to bring the whole world in, you know. And that's why I was like so fascinated by communities and like people, and like people are gonna find time for anyone, you know, as long as they like the substance that's being brought out. People like hammers and DIY and nails and stuff like that, which you might be like, what the hell? But then you're into it. Or like you telling me about primitive was that guy
primitive technology?
Technology, yeah. I mean, like, what the hell was that? But it's interesting.
Yeah.
And, you know, you watch it because he's also telling a story in his visual kind of way.
Like once upon a time, these guys to make knives, this is how they did
This
it out
is
of
how
sticks
they
and
did it,
stones.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting that you said about the age thing, like where the audience is, right? Because I feel like we were the first YouTube generation. Where like I literally like my account says like 2000 and I think I created in 2008 and I use that to this day. And I think
That
YouTube
was 2007
is when YouTube first started, right? 2006, yeah. So like I would say like the first era of like YouTube videos being watched at a large scale was our generation. Like the older generation, they weren't really like, oh, what's this? They were still on watching TV and all that stuff.
It was just for cat videos and stuff
like uploading like family stuff. Like You've Been Framed kind of thing. That's how they kind of saw like, oh, this is the kids knew You've Been Framed, right? But like we've evolved with it. Like we went through an era of watching gaming videos and all these other types of videos, and now we're in the era of ourselves as adults, learning about ourselves, learning about philosophy, learning about all these different ideas, and it's very interesting. Like the term video essay is very interesting because in school you're like, I'm done writing these essays. You know?
Exactly.
But then again, every now and then you have an actual interesting topic in school where you do some research and maybe you found it interesting, or even in your university dissertations. I didn't go to university, but a lot of people that's how they made it work for them. You know. So it's interesting to see like there's an actual market for like video essays and people creating content in a very cinematic way to just talk about their own struggles, basically. So I think some of the videos you put out recently, like Kill the Boy was a very interesting one. So like I would like to see more stuff like that, and it's given me inspiration to do similar stuff myself.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, though, I guess the authentic part kind of comes of like sometimes just not caring about if it lands or not. Because sometimes I'll be writing up a script, then halfway through, all these voices of who's gonna actually understand this, who's gonna get this, who's gonna what, blah blah blah. So what I do is I use Yasin as my little brother as a sticking board. I just throw different topics and ideas at him, and then the one that piques his interest, I'm like, okay, there might be something to unpack in that, you know.
How are you gonna? Genuine question. How are you gonna find that? Like once you move away from your brother, or if he moves away from you?
Hey, FaceTime.
You're bringing him along, huh? Stay in the closet.
He's gonna be in that closet.
Like, in the Harry Potter closet.
About 6 ideas, right? You know what I mean? And hit them up with that, like stuff like, for example, recently I've been looking at is this term that's coming up of like death of the living room. You know what I mean? Because that's how people coin these things, like death of this, death of that, extreme stuff, you know? But it's like the idea that the living room no longer kind of exists, that coexisting place where everybody is given the same information at the same time, and then they can either continue, agree, disagree, hash things out, you know what I mean? But now it's like everybody's so individualistic of like, they like this and they like that, and it can all work because they've got access to it on their phone, you know? And kind of what does that mean? How does that look for people? And making that into a story, and also like in a kind of funny way that people kind of enjoy. So that's like my thing for the next year, really. Whether it flops or not, like I said, it's all about getting that catalog. And I guess even the idea of whether it flops or not isn't a good idea to even it's not a good first step to take.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, do I like the topics? Do I like what it's about? And then eventually there's a comforting thing of like your community coming to you. Because there are going to be people that like our stuff. And then eventually they will find it and they'll be like, okay, wow, like, where was this my whole life, you know? So I find a lot of comfort in that for sure. It's just about doing it. Yeah.
Cool. So briefly before we touch on the next topic, I'm not going to talk about freelancing. I'm going to talk more about the
I guess it's kind of what
thinking.
you want to do next, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to talk about that.
He's adamant.
I'm tired of myself,
He's
man.
at it.
No, I'm more interested in just talking about the ways of thinking that lead you to do things. So myself, I talked about, I love the idea of fresh starts. The idea of a new week, a new month, first of something.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good. Like this is it. So now I'm trying to recalibrate my mind to do things on like random days, like and not do things tomorrow. Like do a little bit now, and like don't even think about tomorrow. Like I'm trying to recalibrate my mind to think about things in that way, and like just like if I'm gonna start something, it's gonna be on a random Tuesday or it's gonna be a random Sunday. You know, like I wanna make like a random number, like the third of something, just a sticking point to me. Like, no, this is a fresh start. Instead, it's not the first. It's not Monday. Like, just make it a random. Yeah, whenever you got an idea, just go for it. Do a little bit, and then when you're a bit tired of it, just drop it. Do something else, and then just get back into it consistently. But keep that within the frame of like every week you've got to input things before you ever think about output. Like. Just input. I'm trying to recalibrate my mind to think about that. So every week, I've got some days where I want to edit. I've got some days where I want to do some sewing. And then like just keep a day for this, keep a day for that. But don't worry about what's the outcome of it. What's the outcome of it? Or what am I going to produce? Or because I always and I know there's other people like me that I always have this mentality of thinking about upscaling. Yeah, you can't upscale something without an initial product in the first place. Whatever the thing you're doing, for some reason you're always thinking about the future and the next step. How are we gonna make it big? Yeah. So like you said, the social capital building that I think is very important. And also for yourself, I think just in day-to-day life, having that idea of input builds a routine, and then you're just input, and then have some days where you're consuming things as well, just to relax and unwind, and give your brain a bit of a rest. And then if something comes out of all of these things, I think then be happy with it, but never forget that the idea is to enjoy the process, and that's why I've quit my job and I've kind of stuck to it now. I'm hoping that I never get to a point where I feel like I'm gonna revert back to that career.
Yeah, of course.
That's the game plan. So yeah, I'm talking like my career was like I was digging sewers
every day.
Yeah,
and that's it. You go home.
Yeah, like I had blisters from wearing my wellies all day. Like it wasn't that deep in it, but yeah, it wasn't what I wanted to do. That's all it was. Yeah, for anyone in a similar position, I would say like just like at the end of the day, we could all die tomorrow. We could die today. Like if you're not enjoying what you do now, when are you gonna really enjoy it? Exactly. So that's I'm just trying to change my own mindset first and foremost before I even think about. This is what I want to do. There's a lot of things I want to do, but I think the mindset and being healthy in that mindset is the most important thing before you do anything else, and establish that as a foundation, you know. And
I definitely agree with you. I think for me, I think by the time this definitely comes out, I'll be 28, and
bro, that's coming up real soon, man. Yeah, that's coming up sharp.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I'll be 28 by the time this comes out, and I feel like I guess this is quite some recent thoughts that I've been having, which is just being like, this is not what I envisioned.
I'll tell you what,
to be at 28.
Not to interrupt, but 29 has been a steep learning curve for me.
No, I can imagine. But like but I feel like one thing that I'll definitely be doing next year is definitely being a lot more, I guess, considerate to myself and a lot less harsh. You know, in between years, to like where I'm at and what I've done and the lack thereof, and just being like, you know what, like it doesn't really matter about age, I guess, and a certain milestone and a certain number that you kind of had to, you know, like it's been a weird one of like, because my birthday is on the 28th day, And then I would always, as a kid, I'd be like, wow, imagine being 28 on the 28th day. That's so old. Yuck. And so it's always been this kind of weird thing of like negatively looking at aging, but trying to rewire that whole thing of like, well, you're going to age regardless of whether you like it or not. And instead of hating on it, to kind of enjoy the moments, because technically we are still young. You know, we're not even old. But we feel like, I don't know, for some reason I feel like this is it now. I've gone beyond the sell by date, you know, and it's only going to get worse from here, which is it's not the move to have, you know, whether you're 28, whether you're 29, 30, wherever you are. It's always good to kind of be like, okay, this is where I'm starting from, and that is totally fine, because at the end of the day, you are going to die, you know, not to make it all morbid and stuff, but your time is finite. So to always be like, damn, I was young back then, I should have done it then, it makes no sense. The best time you had obviously was before, but the next best time is now, as they always say. So it's just kind of like being a lot more kind towards myself as I age, as I mature. You know what I mean? In being like, you know what, like you always got this year to sort it out. You know?
Cool. So that's our hopes and dreams for the coming future.
Yeah, right.
Our thoughts on the season in terms of guests. I thought the last guest, you know what, she lived up to it, you know. She lived up to it.
Outstanding.
We talked about it in the episode. We said we're going to be talking about our favorite guest in the next one. You'll be up there.
Yeah.
She lived up to it, to be fair. She held her own for sure. But in terms of favorite books, any favorite episodes?
How to Make Time.
How to Make Time.
How to Make Time. I feel like it necessarily wasn't probably by going into it my favorite book. I thought the Feel Good Productivity was pretty good and all that kind of stuff, you know. But How to Make Time is the one that now I keep referencing and keep telling myself and keep the one that's been more impactful on a day-to-day basis has definitely been that one. I'm always kind of like, okay, when your CPU and your mind is too high because you want to do like so many different things, just highlight one thing and just be like, okay, fine, today you're going to get this thing done, because you always have tomorrow, and I always felt like tomorrow was too long and too far away. But then that after you do that one task, you realize, okay, at least I got one thing done, and you feel like 10 times better than trying to do more.
It's a great take.
What would you say?
My one, What's Stopping You? Because I feel like that's that episode and the thinking behind it and the themes behind it.
Yeah.
It really motivated me to quit my job.
And okay, that's a big one.
Yeah, so it's a big one. And to this day, that's just a recurring thought.
Yeah.
Like just do things. Just do it. That's the famous next saying
which
goes.
is probably the best thing.
Just do it.
Don't wait for things to be perfect. Don't wait till you get things right exactly how you needed it. And when you line this thing up and when you line that, and then finally you're going to start. It's not the way forward. You know what I mean? You just got to start, and then as you do it, you start progressing things and moving the furniture to the positions that you like best.
I want to talk about the next season. We got running out of time, but before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to all the guests that have come on so far. In the season. So Nabil El-Kanini, Privatized Mandem.
Kanani.
El-Kanani. Sorry, Kanini. Phil, I don't know why. But yeah. Nabil, thank you very much for coming on. That was a great episode and a great book as well that he's written. Scope, another great episode. You'll keep an eye out for them as well. Make sure that you're keeping an eye on watching what they do, because they're doing some great stuff. Kashif, been a great supporter of the podcasts throughout. And we've enjoyed those episodes, although I haven't been in part of them, but I've enjoyed listening to them. And then we obviously had Khalid. At Candid Book Club, Uma. Thank you to all of them. It was a pleasure having them on, and they definitely contributed to a good ending to the season, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll probably say, just to wrap up, for all of our creative folk out there, or people out here trying to make it, you know what I mean? It's nice to also look at the yearly reviews and stuff like that you've done, but also to try and make plans to get things done the next year, because one thing I realized listening back to the other one, I was just like, I wish I did more of that. So that's what was pushing me to actually do it, making those goals, making those things. And it will be tough starting out, as everything is, but it will get better. You know, it always does.
And next season we'll be talking about a very specific theme throughout the whole season. So we're going to be covering it in different ways. It'll be about storytelling. It's going to be a very interesting one. We're going to be approaching things in a very different way. But we'll still the same core and meaning behind why we started this. Keep an eye out for that. We're going to try and do more community stuff, start a book club, and build a community around this podcast. And hopefully you guys feel involved and feel engaged with that.
And with that, we'll see you guys next year.
Here's to a good 2025. Thank you for listening to another season of the PaperTrails podcast with your boys Shamaki and Mohammed here at the podcast rooms. We'll see you in the next one.
Damn right.